broadcasting live from the Digital Summit in Kansas City. It's our second year here as a sponsor and as a participating session, and we're just having a blast. There's a lot of great things going on here, a lot of great people. The attendance is phenomenal, and there's a lot of learnings to be had in the digital marketing space. And so today we thought we'd take advantage to spend some time with Ali Scott, who's local here in Kansas City, and really just want to learn a lot about what you're getting out of the Digital Summit. So I guess I'll start with this. Is this the first one you've been to? Have you been to others? And kind of what's the motivation for coming? Like, what does it do for you?
Sure. This is actually my third time at the Digital Summit, and I think it came to our market 3 years ago, and I'm lucky to work for a company that kind of says, go out, learn some new things, take these 2 days off, and it's good for me to kind of see what's new, validate what we're doing, and see if we need to expand on anything. So I take a lot away from this each year.
Yeah, great. So you said validating, right? And actually I've heard this from several people as we've talked to around here is so stuff that I've already known, but it's just a reassurance that maybe I have the right strategy or I'm doing the right things. Like, do you have a specific example of maybe one of the things that you learned here that you said, hey, you know what? I feel much better about how I'm doing my business.
Yes. So the company I work for, we're targeting a younger audience. It's an education client. So the sessions that focus on Gen Z and kind of what we inherently think they're probably doing this, they're probably not doing this, but coming and getting some hard data on those thoughts and using that and moving forward with the rest of the team. It's just good to know that we are working in the same space that we need to be or striving to get better in the space that we need to be to reach our target audience.
Yeah. So is there something that you feel like you want to implement a strategy next week? Is there already like notes that you're taking saying, you know what, this is going to be one of the first things I'm going to try and tackle after this?
I kind of have to come back from this and like regroup and digest everything because it is so hard and fast and there's a lot that comes at you in a few days. But I definitely think our messaging strategy and some of the content that we are putting out there can be refined and a little bit more audience specific probably after some things I learned here.
Yeah. So what do you think in terms of like your role in the company? What do you do? I'd love to just learn more about kind of what you're responsible for. And so how do you work with everybody on your team so that you can be an influencer, right? Coming to this and kind of saying, here's the things that we need to think about in the future. Tell me a little bit more about your specific role.
Yes, happy to. So I actually came from the advertising world before I came to a local community college here. They basically have an in-house agency, so I'm on the marketing team, but we do everything from creative to ad buys and everything start to finish from a marketing perspective. So I do handle a lot of the external awareness, so a lot of the advertising buys and the campaigns from creative to content that ladder up to what is our message that we're pushing out, is it consistent across all channels, and then working with our media partners to place the buys and optimize and get reporting and kind of report back.
Yeah. What do you think is your biggest struggle? So what do you think is the one piece that you have this grand vision of how we can do this better, but like what is one piece that you think you're still missing internally, externally, industry-wise? What keeps you up at night, Ali?
Okay. I think our audience is just, there's so many options. So we are an option out there. What else are they really looking into? So the more audience data that we can get, and just, unfortunately, because our setup, people come for a class or 2 or 2 years only, we're not getting as much data on them. But so yeah, I would just say making sure we're rising above and standing out from our competition.
Yeah. And what does that data strategy look like for you all? So you mentioned, the students, like there's some sense of a transient, right? Like, how much time that they're spending. Do you guys have a great data strategy internally in terms of not only looking at students, but like you said, like what are they doing? What are they interested in? How are they, basically using digital media in how it is today? Do you feel like you've got a good handle on that?
I think we are ever learning, ever evolving because that age group they're always on to the new thing. Yeah. So it's, making sure our staff is going to things like the Digital Summit to stay kind of on top of what are the trends, not just for age group, but also, email in general or TV in general, where do we need to be looking ahead? Yeah. So I would say we work closely with our admissions department, marketing, so we try to get our actual student data, but then just staying on top of, like you said, industry trends and kind of just ways to stay out in front.
Yeah, Cool. Well, that's what it's all about, right? It's all about learnings, and we want to learn from you as well. So everybody who's watching, if you've got any questions, make sure you comment. Let us know where you're, commenting from. We'd love to hear from you, but we definitely want to make sure we try to get to as many questions as we can. I do want to also talk about one other thing, which is thank you for coming to our session. So I appreciate that. But when you talk about Gen Zs, and I know I shared some information about the way people watch is very different than for an 18-year-old versus a 54-year-old. Is there any insights that you learned from the session that said, wow, I never thought about that way, or I didn't realize that was the case? I'd just love to get some insight from you on that.
I really took away that the extreme brand lift, I thought, when you compare the OTT product with a linear schedule, I did not realize that it was so big, because we do a combination of linear, OTT, ads everywhere, just to reach our varied audiences. But it kind of goes back to that validating of we're doing the right thing, making sure we have the right mix. And I was surprised at how much it actually gives us a boost when you pair the traditional and then the ever-changing digital world.
Yeah. So did anything resonate with you on a personal basis? Like I shared this example where, in our house, we've got a connected television, we've got iPads, I've got a box in my living room and in the bedroom as well. And so my family, there's this ubiquitous of screens, right? And we're watching every different way. Do you feel like that resonated with you in your house or in your way you watch?
Yes. Absolutely. We are a Roku household, okay. So it is watching through apps now. And when you talked about I watch my Spectrum app for live TV, it's like that is exactly what we do. Everything else is I've downloaded the app for my shows that I like on the networks that I like, and that's how I view now. And we are on our phones constantly. So yes, just the cross-platform and the kind of the smart TV and using the apps, not necessarily watching live all the time.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's funny. We actually had a really fun conversation at dinner last night, so there's a bunch of us got together, and not only were we all talking about what our favorite shows are, but where do you find it? So I was like, oh yeah, I watch Killing Eve, well that's on Hulu, or I watch Better Call Saul, well that's on Amazon. It's just funny now that we can't only talk about the show, but it's like, well, where do we go to get it? So I'm going to put you on the spot, okay. And I need you to tell me what your favorite show is, what you're binge watching right now, like what you're obsessed with.
Okay. I am an admitted Bravo TV addict, okay. And have been since The Real Housewives came on the scene. So I am very excited now that Southern Charm is back.
Okay.
So that is rising to the top of my favorites right now.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Allie, thank you so much for coming by. We really appreciate it. I think you're a great example of this. I think a lot of the stuff that we can get out of the Digital Summit, we appreciate you taking some time, and hopefully you'll learn a lot more the rest of the day.
I look forward to it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Allie. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. So again, thanks to Allie. If you have any questions about digital marketing, about OTT, Spectrum Reach, whatever it may be, please feel free to comment, send us your questions, and we'll get to them. And on that note, I'm going to introduce Taylor Curry, who is our digital guru here in Kansas City. So Taylor and I work really closely together. It's our job to be digital evangelists and television evangelists together. So that'd be great for have Taylor come sit down. Tell us a little bit about what he's kind of experienced here at the Digital Summit. This is your first time, Taylor, I believe. So just kind of get some insight from you on what this all looks like, what you've learned, and are you having fun?
Yes, a lot of fun so far, Ben. So it's my first Digital Summit. Just getting to meet people from all parts of the digital industry, right? So there's email marketing, there's call tracking, there's all kinds of different things with different businesses here, different marketing agencies, different buyers, different sellers, all coming from a different perspective. So I think it's good to get lots of different ideas and bring them together and collaborate. So you did great in your session. A couple jokes I think that you snuck in there, right? That went over well.
Did they go over? Did they die, or I don't know?
Maybe it was just us that was laughing, the Spectrum folks. But
it's okay to get the pity laugh, Taylor. It's okay.
Good. So, no, I wanted to just have a brief conversation. Yeah. And like you said, if anybody has questions, feel free to ask those, and we'll answer those at the end. So we were talking about connected devices, yeah. Right? So we talk about 11 connected devices per household. Yeah. So can you tell us what is a connected device? What would you consider a connected device?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, at its core, it's basically one of your screens that's connected to the internet. So it could be something as simple as your phone or your tablet that's on Wi-Fi. But nowadays, there's this growth in connected televisions. So it's either a combination of my Samsung I literally go into network settings and connect it to my Wi-Fi, or I use like a Roku or a Chromecast and whatnot, put a stick behind the TV, and then use that USB to connect to the internet. So what that's done is just convenience, right? I mean, the convenience is, I mentioned in the session, you don't need to have this huge entertainment center anymore. You don't have cords hanging around. You don't have a lot of boxes. It's really about, what is the convenience for the consumer and how they can watch. And then what that's leading to is just access to a lot more viewing content. And then ultimately, like the data that you get. Like it's surprising when you can find out in terms of not only what an app is measuring, but like even your Samsung TV knows what you're watching. So it's kind of funny. But that's kind of the connected television or connected device, is all those ways that you can watch television through Wi-Fi, internet streaming only.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think in my house, I know we have somebody here in Kansas City who gives the example of having over 20, right? You have a couple kids, each of them have 2 or 3. You got a TV in every room. So while I'm thinking about this, everybody's talking about cord cutting, right? That's the big thing. So as we transition and we talk about, you talked about in your session, the convergence of what is TV 20 years ago? What does TV look like now? So how do you define TV? How do you personally define it? And then how would you say that a lot of people are defining it either on the, in the industry or just in general?
Yeah, no. So that's a loaded question, but I'll do my best here because that's the fun part. That's what I love. What I do is I mentioned in there is how do you define television? And if we talk about marketers, we're all defining it by platform. So what are the different providers and apps and platforms and whatever? But if you talk to your wife, right? If you talk to Trista, if you talk to my wife, their vision of TV is just a screen, right? And it doesn't matter if it's big screen, small screen, as long as it's connected to the internet. I also made the distinction is whether it's live or on demand. They don't really make that distinction. So I think what is happening now is it really does start with content. So television now, I mentioned that Netflix kind of changed the game. Your definition of television in the past was cable or my network TV stations, the ABC or CBS, right? And now with Netflix and a lot of the original content that you can get on Amazon or Hulu and everything, it's just completely redefined what that is. So I think what we're trying to figure out as a media company is how do we help customers understand the different ways that people want to watch their favorite shows. Number one, is it ad supported or not, right? There's a lot of people that watch Netflix. I can't get my local TV ad in front of those people, right? But also the long tail, meaning if you're a gamer, there's a lot of people that watch Twitch. And there's a lot of ads there, but that's a very niche audience. So it's trying to find everything in between. And so I think that's where we're at in terms of, content's going to define a television. I think the next thing that the industry's got to figure out is, are we in a glut? Meaning, have we hit peak TV in the sense that there's so many services now that people don't even know where to go? It's going to be harder to find their favorite show. I think that's all where we're in the middle of it right now. It's going to kind of shake out in the next few years. So TV isn't as easy as it used to be, but I think it's more fun because, God, there's so many more shows that you can watch. It's kind of fun.
I think I heard a story the other day that, cord cutting, right? I'm going to get rid of my cable subscription, but then I end up buying all these other services and I end up spending more monthly than I did before, and I have less channels, just because that's the cool thing to do. Or, I need to have Netflix, I need to have Hulu, I need to have Amazon Prime because they offer me so much different content and unique content. So what would you say, as far as Spectrum Reach specifically, what separates maybe our OTT product from others in the market?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back and answer first the cord cutting thing. Is cord cutting happening? Absolutely, right? We don't deny that. We are a cable internet company, so we understand that there's people that are leaving our business. The distinction that we have to make is there's kind of two things. Number one is cord cutting at its definition is literally not using a cord. So if you're still using internet to stream, but you're still watching cable networks, is that essentially cord cutting? People can define it different ways. So meaning, I'm going to cut the cord, but I'm going to subscribe to Sling TV, or YouTube TV. That's basically a TV. It's pay TV. It's cable, right? But it's still watching shows that I pay for the subscription basis, and there's advertising involved. I think the other thing is going back to the convenience, right? Or price conscious. That people say, I want choice. And so I might be cutting the cord because, I'm someone who really doesn't like sports. I know you and I think that's crazy, but there's a lot of people who, there's people out there actually that don't watch sports. So they really only want HGTV and AMC, and they want to combine that with Netflix. So it's really about providing choice. So I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. We just know that when you look at scale, I think one of the myths out there is that I think there's some stats saying like there's 50 or 60% decline or increase, I guess you could say, in cord cutting. But if you look at actual numbers, it's like going from 1.5 million to 2 million people that have cut the cord out of 90 million. So it's not happening as fast or the volume. But the reality is, I think the consumer is in a great spot because they can kind of dictate what they want, and they have a lot of opportunities and options. So I think it's a good thing for consumers at the end of the day. Yeah.
Awesome. How does so if I'm a company, how does Spectrum Reach help me reach my consumer? Where do we start? You touched on a blueprint, right? So there's tons of different methodologies and ways to market my business, right? Where should I start when I'm looking to place my marketing or my advertising dollars, and how does Spectrum Reach help me on that path?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say first and foremost, I mentioned it earlier, start with the audience, right? Start with who you're trying to reach, who should see your ad. If we're so worried about platforms or demos or which vendor has, a best price, that's not a really great place to start. So I think when you start with the audience, I think that's number one. I think number two is we look at it from kind of a whole home approach. So I think one of the advantages of Spectrum Reach is we have a direct customer relationship to a household that not only most of them have a TV subscription, but they also have internet. And so what does that mean is we know in every house, and again, I go back to your personal experience, right, is we have a bunch of devices. So our job is to basically aggregate all of that attention based on the households that we service. And we used targeting methods that are advanced, right, to be able to make sure that any customer we work with is reaching the right home. And whether that's on TV, that's on your phone, that's on OTT, doesn't matter. So I think that's where we bring it all together. And then we can extend, right, so out of the home with, your traditional display ads or online video, search, social. So for us is the core of it. We talked about it, television drives most time spent. Right. We think that we are very strong in providing the best content in the marketplace. That's where people want to watch. And then it's about bringing everything together and getting all that attention together to provide our customers the best opportunity to reach right people.
Awesome. So I think we have a couple questions. So we have a couple questions we've gotten via our Twitter and Facebook. So we are going to ask a couple of those. So one of them was actually a question somebody took. Let's see, during your presentation. So they took a picture of a screen, basically talking about where are people buying their subscription VOD, right? So Netflix, Hulu. So I want to reach those customers. And the question is, how can we buy advertising in this space when only one of these options allows local advertisements? So I think I know what your answer will be. So I'll expand on it a little bit and say, I want to reach the people that are watching those. How do I accomplish that?
Yeah. No, I think it's a great way you put it. Number one, I can't control that we can't get ads on Netflix and Amazon or HBO, right? So everybody that's watching Game of Thrones, we can't really reach them. So I think it's understanding people who already have a Netflix subscription, can we reach those people, right? Because it's very likely from the data that we've seen that you don't have somebody that is a Netflix only, that's all they watch. They're pairing that with other television. So, and most likely it's paid television. So, but the thing is, I can't get an ad in front of a Netflix consumer on Netflix, but I'll tell you what, I can reach that same house that I know watches Netflix. So I think there's other ways to do it outside of working directly with the subscription VOD services.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll have a couple more here. So is there a difference between a successful digital campaign and a successful TV campaign? You touched on it a little bit during your session as far as how am I getting reporting, how am I looking at a TV campaign, what does our lift look like, so some things that we do. But if you were going to say, what's the difference between a successful digital and a successful TV campaign?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to your strategy, right? So typically digital has always been very much a direct response medium, right? I'm searching for a pizza place, down the street. I want to run a search ad. I want to make sure you come to order pizza from me. So typically it's always been that way. We're looking at conversions. Everything's trackable. Everything's traceable. So if your strategy is direct response, then a good campaign is conversions, right? Are you getting more people to your site? Are they buying more products? All of that. TV has traditionally always been a great brand medium. I mentioned in the session that Google and Facebook and Amazon are the number 2 spender in all television advertising. What are they trying to do? They're trying to create an awareness for their brands, whether it's Facebook portal, YouTube TV, whatever their services are, the Amazon Alexa. So I think success is based on what are you trying to achieve. And I think that's a big distinction is we try to make one thing do the other. We try to make TV deliver like digital, or we try to make digital deliver like television. And it's just not always simple that way. So I think they can be mutually exclusive, but I think the best campaigns is when you look at it together, and we know that we've seen TV and digital combined, the metrics are that much higher. So I think it's just kind of analyzing what is the strategy overall.
Perfect. Yeah. So we talked about defining your audience before you start, and then I think the other important thing is we need to be on the same page with our advertisers as far as what are their goals, making sure that way we can get to a successful customized campaign for them, so we know what their goals are before we start. The last question we got here, and I'm going to make it a 2-part question. So how is Addressable making an impact in the digital space? So what I would say first, if you want to go ahead and just address Addressable, so those folks that are not aware or not as familiar. So what is Addressable? What is addressability? And then how is that making an impact? What is it doing for digital advertising and in the digital space?
Yeah. So Addressable, I think at its core is you're trying to target a specific, based on geography. So I'm addressing a specific household. It can be a demographic, or it could be some kind of criteria. So again, like your traditional household income, but also it can be what kind of car is in the garage.
Right.
So addressability is, and it started with digital because we could target based on these very specific criterias, based on the device that people are using. And so you map that back to the person, right? So Google has a pretty good idea of who Ben is and how old I am and all of that. I think where it's changing the game with television is about taking television down to a household level. So I think that's where addressability is really cool. Because, again, traditionally, I'm running one spot. It's running across every single house that is across our footprint. And that spot's going to run no matter what at 8:05 on Walking Dead. But now the future is, well, you know what? If I'm going to run an ad for, a local amusement park, I want to reach households that are like me that have a 7-year-old. I don't need to reach the college student, right, that's renting an apartment. So the ability to target by house with your television ad is amazing. And so right now we're in the bridge to that. I think OTT is giving us that opportunity to make that bridge because of that dynamic capability we have. We can run ads in real time. But I think what we call linear television, your traditional television, right, in the next few years is going to get there as well. And that's what's pretty exciting for the industry. And that's what everybody's pushing for. And that's why we're seeing the digital folks, the big tech companies, getting into the space because they know that's like the last frontier of, medium that's engagement. So it's pretty fun.
Yep. Everybody loves video, right? Video is king. So no, we appreciate everybody that tuned in. Ben, for speaking, right? Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No. I just it's an amazing time to be in this business. We're digital marketers. Working in the TV world and the video world. It's just super fun. So appreciate everybody watching. Any follow-up questions, we'll get back to you, absolutely. But yeah, thanks for taking some time to check us out. And we're going to get back to a lot of learning at the Digital Summit. So thanks, everybody.